YouTube friends, thanks so much for coming by. Today we're doing a little bit of an experiment. We are going to try to turn these guys into sea scallops. These little beauties are king oyster mushrooms. We're going to cut them up, marinate them, try to impart some flavors of the sea into them. Then we're going to sear them up and hopefully come out with a delicious version of plant-based scallops. Keep on watching to see how it goes. Okie dokie guys, let's get started with our mushrooms. I've got this 4-pack of king oyster mushrooms. I feel like you can find king oyster mushrooms pretty easily nowadays. I do find that I find the best value at Asian markets. There's a market that's a little bit closer to Salt Lake that I like to go to. They have beautiful mushrooms for really reasonable prices, but you should be able to find them at any kind of natural grocer type store if you can't find them at your regular grocery store. So I'm saving those other two to make some pulled mushroom barbecue sandwiches. I'll link below my recipe. It's also really amazing. So I'm just wiping them off with a damp towel to get any of that extra dirt. And I'm cutting off the bottom and the top just so we can have a uniform size for our scallops. I will save these for a tofu scramble tomorrow morning. Then we're just going to cut them into medallions. They will shrink quite a bit, so I'm just gonna get about 3 or 4 per mushroom here. And that way they'll be about scallop size when we cook them down, like so. Okay, and I'm just doing the same exact thing to the second mushroom. We're just trying to keep all the little medallions about the same thickness so they'll cook pretty evenly and around the same time. Then we're gonna get started with our marinade. I have got some red miso here. Use any miso you've got on hand. It's just gonna add a nice umami flavor to our marinade. I'm adding in a tablespoon here. I also, at the Asian market I just told you about where I get my mushrooms, found this vegetarian oyster sauce, which according to the ingredients looks very vegan to me. So I'm gonna give it a shot. I think that'll also help with imparting some sea-like flavors into our mushrooms here. I'm gonna add a tablespoon of that. And then to add a little bit of fat into these mushrooms to get a better scallop-like texture, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of any kind of light oil. I'm using canola today. And that'll soak into our mushrooms and also help them sear up really well. And then to get a little bit more of that sea-like flavor, I've got these roasted seaweed sheets here. They're just like seaweed snacks. You can use nori as well. I believe the difference is this has a little bit of oil and salt on them, so it works perfectly for the marinade, and then you can eat the rest as a snack. So I'm adding 4 pieces, which equals about a sheet of nori. So whatever you've got on hand will work wonderfully. And then for a little kick of seafood flavor seasoning, I'm going to add about a half a teaspoon of Old Bay, because why not? And now, I think this is a pretty important step. I've boiled about 2 cups of water. I'm going to pour this into the marinade. I think it's important to add our mushrooms into the hot water because it'll draw in those flavors a lot easier. So mixing everything around, getting that miso dissolved, that vegetarian oyster sauce dissolved, get those nori sheets nice and soft. And so what I'm hoping is going to happen, I'm adding some black pepper as well, but what I'm hoping is going to happen is we add our mushrooms to the hot marinade, and as it cools down, everything's just going to soak up really beautifully. So before we add our mushrooms though, I'm going to score the edges of them a little bit on each side. I'm just going to score kind of like a crosshatch pattern into each side of the mushroom, and this will help that marinade soak up into the entire mushroom. It'll also help our mushrooms sear really evenly when we put them in the hot oil. So I think this is a nice step to take the time to do. So I'm gonna let these cool down in the refrigerator for at least an hour. You want that marinade to have a chance to cool down and soak up into those mushrooms. I'm going to about every half an hour or so just kind of swirl everything around to make sure each little mushroom scallop's getting enough marinade going on. And after an hour, you should be good to go. You can definitely do this overnight. I don't think it's gonna add too much flavor to our mushrooms, but I let it sit for probably about an hour and a half. And this is what they look like. You can tell that they're starting to even get a little bit of that color from the Old Bay and the miso. They are smelling delicious already. So what I'm going to do before we fry them, just so we don't have a fryer explosion here, I'm just pulling them out of the marinade onto some paper towel to let them drain off excess marinade liquid. Once we've drained them a bit and patted them down, we will be ready to fry them up. Okay guys, fry time. I've got 2 tablespoons of that same canola oil in a pan on medium-high heat. I kept the volume on so you can hear this awesome sizzle. They're searing up really nicely. I'm just going to get all our scallops on the pan. I'm going to try not to overcrowd anything. And I am going to cook them for about 5 minutes, and then we will flip them on over. Careful when you flip them, it tends to get a little crazy. Some of that liquid has kind of boiled up on top, so be careful. These are looking gorgeous. It's been about 5 more minutes on the other side of our mushrooms here, and I'm just adding in a heaping tablespoon of vegan butter. I'm going to let this melt a bit and then just baste our mushrooms with it to give nice, yummy, buttery flavor at the end here. Again, I wish you guys could smell this. It smells so freaking good in my kitchen right now. You, I think, have to try this.
Don't remember the miles, but yes, it does run.
I'm also going to boil up just a little bit of rice noodles. I'm going to kind of serve these with some buttered noodles with a little bit of seasoning on them. You can, of course, serve them on their own as like a little appetizer. I think this would be a dish that will totally impress your friends. Super fancy without actually being that hard to do. Now I'm just draining our little mushroom scallops on some paper towel just to get that extra oil and butter off. I've got some seasoned noodles. I'll link below what I added. It's just some vegan butter, a little bit of Old Bay, and some garlic. Super simple, super yummy. This is, you could totally do a big portion of it or just a little bit as an appetizer, whatever your little heart desires. Don't these look so fancy? And it really wasn't that hard to do at all. And definitely inexpensive. Oh, I'm so excited to give these a shot. And just for a little extra oomph, I'm gonna spoon a little bit of that extra butter from our pan onto our scallops, because yum, right? Okay guys, taste test time. Moment of truth. Vegan scallops out of oyster mushrooms. Hey. Guys. Okay, I can get into this. It's nice and crispy around those edges that we've cross-hatched. All the flavor from the marinade went all the way into the mushroom. It's got flavor all the way through. There's some sea-like flavors going on from that nori and from the vegan oyster sauce, and the Old Bay seasoning definitely helps it out a little bit. The texture is pretty darn good. It's not exactly like a scallop, but it's got that same snap, and it's a little bit, I don't know what the word is, you know how they're like kind of, like, I don't know if me, is that weird, but like, it's got some give to it, kind of like gummy, if that makes sense. Steve's digging them. You like them? It's a win! We like the vegan scallops. I feel like it's safe to say that our little vegan scallop experiment was a total success. Yay. I feel like I'm going to probably be making these pretty often. I hope you give these a shot. Let me know what you think. Thank you so very much for watching, guys. I can't wait to talk to you soon. Cheers.